So good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, right? Because it's moving very fast. So we want to greet you to this time in terms of we're going to be talking about a very, very important subject, at least for Yoruba and the Yoruba technology. When we talk about Yoruba African science or African sciences, they have various types of modalities that are used to be able to facilitate and to increase energy, power, vigor, vitality, and we use them as called rituals. And so today we're going to be within a ritual space and we'll be doing what is known as Ibori. And so Ibori, Ibori. So Ibori is a combination of two words, or it should sound like Ebo and Ori coming together. Ebo is a type of ritual specifically performed by Babalaos, ritual space for the sake of the Opontif of Ifa. It's become in the diaspora to mean something a little bit different in that it could actually begin to mean various types of rituals that may also include animal sacrifice, but it is specifically used in the context of for our world's high priest Babalawo that used that word. So I'm trying to keep it in the context of Ori. And so everybody, I want you to go ahead and touch your Ori. And if you don't know what your Ori is, this is your Ori, right? And so now if I tell you that you have 3 Oris, where would you touch?
Crown, third eye.
Front, third eye.
And would it be heart or sacral?
Okay, so right, that's what you think. No, so the Ori is on the top of the head, the crown part of your head. I see some people pointing to this part of their head. Mm-hmm. These are called your third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth, and seventh eyes. These are eyes going up. On the top of our head is the crown chakra. Mm-hmm. This is our molder, the part of the head in which is the last part of the head to close as the child is being coming through the birth canal, and then of course the soft part. All you women having a better understanding of that than anything would know that. So the crown talk, that's the Ori. And so we talk about that as the Ori or the Ori. That is the place where our destiny is being formed. So each one of us have this interlocking kind of matrix between two halves of our brain and our head coming together. And that little space in between, it creates almost like a sutra. It kind of looks like a zig, and it's almost very similar to the palms of our hands in this unique kind of closure. Well, that also, the next Ori is called Orienu. And so this is inside of your belly button. So rub your Orienu. More oftentimes people think in some ways that, when we talk about a head, that our head would be on top and in the middle. And again, the last place where you would probably not expect your head to be would be also in the toe, the big toe of the left foot. This particular place, because we have an acupuncturist here, she's like, makes sense, And the connection between the heart and there's actually a line of vertebrae as well, not vertebrae, a line of meridians that go straight from that big toe straight to your heart. And she can claim that, isn't that right? You know that? And then there's also, so there is the connection between that and the heart, and also all the centers of the body go to the feet and to the hands and to the top of the heads. So we have this whole network that can go on. And so the access points that we use are these 3 points to be able to interplay. The Ori is the...
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is the big toe called? Ori what?
Well, there is a name for this, but for the confound of this lecture, it's something, I call it Ori Egun. That's what I'll call it. I call it Ori Egun. The ancestral recognition, the place in which you're touching the floor and making a recognition of those that have passed. The connection that that we are walking on top of our ancestors. There is another term, and I don't want to go into it. They become very, very complex. Trying to understand that, and then I'll have to explain the words, and it's like best way to say it's Ori Egungu, or in the head of your ancestor, and that's the connection between you and your ancestral mothers and fathers. The importance of having a ibori or having a ceremony that goes with your head and refreshing. You know, there's a lot of things that need to go on in our own personal lives, and refreshing our heads help us to add on to the connectivity. It brings about change, can bring about excitement, goodness. There's just a myriad of different things that could come as a result of us connecting to our heads. But most importantly, in the Yoruba faith, there's a divinity which we call OBATALA. And so the creation story tells us that way back when there was a time in which this was a watery medium, the entire world was a water medium, and that the Orisha, Obatala, decided he wanted to come from heaven to earth. He went to the diviner Orumila to be able to find out, you know, what's the possibilities of him coming to earth, and if he came, what would be the resultant of those things that, you know, after coming. So Orumila told him that he could come, and that things were going to be good and nice, and that he needed to get a chain. So he went get a very large chain, and he went and fashioned a gold chain with the deity Ogun. And he fashioned this long chain. He was told that he needed to get a snail shell. And inside this snail shell, he needed to get some sand. And he needed to get a chameleon. And then he was going to come with a black cat. So all these things were collected. And a bag, he needed a bag. He needed a bag to carry some of this stuff. So, you know, like now we got to go to the supermarket with our bags, right? So he came and he had his bag. And when he came down, he let down the golden chain from heaven and came down to the warrior medium below. At the end of the chain is exactly where it was. That Obatala looked and saw nothing but water. He reached in his bag and he took out the snail shell that was filled with sand. He poured it on the earth. He took a 5-toed chicken. One of the things I forgot to say, that he took the chicken and he laid it on the sand. And the chicken started to kick him left, right, center. And that's where the cat started creating the landform, and all the land was created from this specific place where he came from heaven to earth. And he then took the chameleon and set it upon it. And when he did that, then to know if the land was firm. And after finding the land was firm, Obatala came. And soon after that, many of the other divinities started to want to make their pilgrimage from heaven to earth. This was the land of what we call Olokun. What ended up happening in that place, Obatala started getting a little bored. You know, he had the chameleon and he had this cat, and you know, it was like wasn't not too much going on. So he decided, he went to the river, and he was going to the river, and he then started to use clay, and in his own image, he started to fashion human beings, and he started to in that time there was nothing but he also had to take a seed, and that seed was a palm seed from heaven. So that's another thing that I forgot to add to the story. And he'd taken that palm seed and planted it, and then it grew. So he then started tapping the palm tree, and some of the water, the juice of the palm tree was there next to him, and he would drink it. And Eshu then wanted to play a little trick on him, and he fermented the drink, and of course he became intoxicated. And so the story tells us that Obatala is the former and the creator of human beings, and particularly the molder of human heads. Well, in this story, it tells us that he couldn't finish, and that he had to have in his drunkenness another divinity called Oduduwa, then finished human beings and fashioned them. But the moral of the whole meaning behind me telling the whole story is about the creation of Obatala and the creation of the heads, and how he came into being and what he did to be able to fashion human beings. So there's a sense of Obatala as the owner of all heads. And so when the Yoruba cosmology, when we talk about Obatala, we talk about him being the owner of heads. Well, the story then goes further, because later on, Ifa tells us that in the story of another one, which is called Ogbe Yonu, Ogbe Gunda. It tells us a story about 3 friends that were coming from heaven to earth. One was called or Oriseku, Oshela, and then Afuwape. It talks about the three of them, and two of them had their name also had Ori in front of it. They all wanted to come down from heaven and earth to be able to go. But before they did, they were asked could they come, and they went to ask the divine. Asked if they could come, and they said no. You need to go to the elders before you leave. So they went to the elders and asked could they come from heaven to earth, and they were granted permission to come from heaven to earth. And he said that they needed to go from here to a place called Ajalamopi. Ajalamopi. Ajalamopin. Jalamopin. And when they went to this, they went to go there. But when you get there, you shouldn't look to your right. You shouldn't look to your left. You should go, even if you pass your father's house, you should go forward. So that's what they did. They started walking, and all of a sudden you hear greng, 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 greng. The first of them was the son of Ogun. And the sound that he could hear was the sound of Ogun pounding Aare. And he looked, and they said, oh, remember what he said? Don't look to the left, don't look to the right, even if you're passing your father's house. So they continued on. And then they continued on, and they heard clink, 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 clink. It was a Humila's house. The third of the children was, of the friends, was a Humila's son, Afuwape. And he looked, and they said, no, remember what the elder said. Don't look to the left, don't look to the right, even if you pass in your father's house. Afuwape could not resist. And the second of them was called Ija. He continued on with the son of Ogun. And they went straight, but Afuwape stopped at his father's house. When he got in his father's house, he told him that he had a plan, that he wanted to go from heaven to earth, and that the women of then, the great divine, got three of the students together, and they asked them to make divination for his son. And they told him that the journey was going to be good, everything was going to be nice, but that he needed to do ritual. And that part of the ritual was that he needed 2 bags of salt, he needed some chicken wings, and he needed some money. He needed 10,000 calories. So it was at that point in time, they gathered the stuff together, gave the money for his son, they did the ritual. And at the end of the ritual, they took the thing, the 2 bags of salt, and gave it to Afuwape. They gave the chicken wing, and they gave him the money, 10,000 calories. And he did the ritual. But the other 2 had gone. And when they had gone, they got to a place, the place of the town where Ajalamopin lived. And when they got there, they went and they asked the doorkeeper, there was a gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper said, yes, what do you want? He said, we are looking for Ajalamopin. Who are you? He says, well, I'm Ogun's son. And he said, who are you? I am Ija, I'm Ija's son. Ija is another name for the hunter's son. So he said, and what do you want with Ijala? He says, well, we came to go get our heads. Okay, you just go down the road and you go to the left and you go 5 blocks down and you turn left and okay. And they paid attention and they went through the door. And back at Arumila's house, Afuwape decided that he was going to get on his journey. He didn't get there, he didn't start yet, but the other 2 continued on their journey, and they got to Ajala's house. When they got there, they said, who are you? He said, I'm Ogun's son. Who are you? I am Ija's son. So he said, what do you want? Well, we want to get our heads. Your heads? Yes, because we want to go from here, heaven to earth. So they said, well, there's a bunch of heads over there, like them coconuts that you all brought. Go over there and pick one. And so they went and they picked a head, and they took in the place, from a place where they call Abalasala. It's a place where the torrential rains come down on your head, and they started to be able to go on his head. When they got into his head, one of the heads was very soft. The son of Ogun's head was cracked. The other one was soft. It was not fully baked. And so when they came to from the earth, they came to the world, and they took 2 carrots together and tried to put them together to make business, and they had difficulties getting everything done. Back in heaven, Afuwape had decided it was time to go and take on this journey. When he got on his journey, he got to the place where they had gone and saw the gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper was there cooking. And he was taking the ashes from out of the fire and putting it on the food. Afuwape said, "What are you doing?" He said, well, the gatekeeper said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm Afuwape." "And what are you? I'm a woman's son." He says, "And what do you want?" "I'd like to find a Jalamopi." "What do you want for him?" He said, "Well, I want to get my head." He said, "But," Afuwape looked at him, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm cooking, can't you see?" "Yeah, but why are you using that to put on it? What is that you put on it?" He says, "Ash." "Why?" "For flavor." "Flavor?" He said, "You never tried salt?" He said, "No." "What is salt?" Afuwape went into his and gave him some of the salt. He put it on the floor, and he even gave him one of the chicken wings so he could eat it. He started, "This is so good. Do you like it?" He gave them the 2 bags of salt. And it was at that point in time, the gatekeeper started to smile. "Okay, I will show you where Ajala lives. I'm going to take you to his house." And he grabbed them and he started walking with him. "We're going to walk here and down the road and to the right, and then we're going to go to the left, and then we'll get to. But wait, let me tell you, there's 2 men that went before you. But they're looking for Ajala because Ajala is always drunk and he's never given them some money. He owes them. He's an incredible debtor." So he said, "Oh." So he walked into the house of Ajala. He said, "There it is." He walked in. Hey, he walked in, and when he got in, the 2 men said, "Are you Ajala?" He said, "No, I'm Afuwape. I'm a woman's son." He said, "Do you know where is he?" "Oh, I don't know." He said, "Oh, what is the problem?" "He owes us money." "How much does he owe you?" "He owes us 10,000 calories." Afuwape took the money and gave him the 10,000 calories. The men were like, "Okay," and they left. As the men left, Ajala jumped out of the ceiling. He had been hiding. "Who are you?" "Who is he?" "Ajala." "Huh?" "Afuwape." He said, "And what do you want?" He said, "I came to get my head." "What, your head?" He said, "Yes." He says, "I saw you have some over there. Can I take them?" He said, "Oh, no." And he took it and he stood on the ground and it smashed into pieces. He said, "But how about over there?" He took that one and he pushed it and it became mush. He said, "Oh no, this one is not fully baked. Let me take you to my very special place, storehouse, where I keep heads." And he took him there and he carefully, Ajala took the head, looked at it, took it and threw it on the ground and rubbed it hard and no cracks and everything. He said, "Here, this one is a good head." And it was at that point that he took this journey from heaven to earth, and went to the place of Ajala, where they call Balasala, where there was torrential rains, and his head didn't leak, and his head wasn't too soft. And when he came from heaven to earth, he took 2 cows together, and he moved on, and he began to able to have 2 to 4, 4 became 8. Soon he had a wife, soon he had children, soon he had a house, soon he had every horse. He had all good things. And when the other 2 saw him, why is his life so good? Why is his life so well? He said that we all went to the same place to get our heads, but we all have a different destiny. And so it was in song that they went and they sung it. And so it's very important to note that when you come down from heaven to earth, it's very important that you have done ritual in heaven. So when you get back, you make sure before coming back, you do ritual. That's one thing. The next thing is to also realize about your head and the importance of having a good head. Having a head that is cracked or having a head that is not fully formed and molded. We know people like this, we come across them. There's some people that we come across and they have very, very difficult times in their life. It's because of their destiny. It's because of the things that they've connected in their life. And so the Ori, according to Yoruba faith and technology, the technological science of it, tells us that we need to connect our heads. We need to connect our heads. We have to mold our heads. And if we come into the world and our heads are not fully formed and not fully closed, or or they're cracked, then we can use ritual to be able to mend it and make it whole once again. But one of the key ingredients of being able to remold and shape our heads is using character as a vehicle by which we develop good character. You know, it is character we seek, it is character seeking. In all things, we should seek character first. The Orin, the 102 point says that it is like this character becomes like the sweetness of the honey and even its corn. And so it is that we have to seek to be able to reinstall our minds can be reenacted or reconnected through acts of kindness, random acts of kindness, self-service, and those things help to reconnect and organize our minds so that our minds can become whole and full once again. It is that Ifa tells us is needed to be able to reach the fullness of all the good things that we want in our lives. So it's Orin that we begin to look. So whenever we come from heaven and earth, there was this thought that there was another story we found that says that all the Oluwole, all the heavenly spirits, all the angels and archangels, and that they all were told to do ritual, but only one of them did ritual, and that's what they say Orin. They said our head was the only thing that did ritual, so that people want this connectivity with the ancestors. They want to develop this sense of connectivity with deity, with saints, with spirits, with all these things. But we're looking from outside, and we need to look from the inside first. The place where it is going to be where our most blessings can come is from this, our head. If your head is not right, and there's a sense that we talk about this in racial development, or when people become interested in getting the asiento or the seeding of the spirit into them, the thing is that if your head is not right when you go in, what makes you think when you come out it's going to be any better? Instead, it will be just magnified. So if you go in bad, you put something, energize it, and put energy into something which is not fixed and formed, then it just stays unfixed and unformed. Well, similarly, it's the same thing with all relationships. People always come to me and they say, I have nobody. I can't find nobody. I say, you ever think about trying to fix yourself? That's the truth. You might not be able to find somebody because you're still working on yourself. You're still working on fixing yourself, right? So you got a girlfriend? You like girls? He said no. I don't know what to do. So those are the things that, and so the story tells us if Iwere and in heaven was Owere who washes away poverty, imperfection, and the imperfections of human beings. It is the idea of washing one's head, that we wash away imperfections. We wash away things that cannot be normally performed. That it is, the storehouse of our knowledge is our minds. The storehouse of our recollections is in our heads. And when we find ourselves being able to gather information, and we can never become wise if we can't store the information of the knowledge, and we can never develop great understanding if we don't be able to ascertain a sense of wisdom. And wisdom is a manifestation of knowledge, being able to be applied knowledge. You see, because the philosophical people have these very deep things that go on in their life. But if you're not able to use what you know, then it's just garbage. It's only when you're able to use what you know that it becomes useful information. And it's through the multiple uses of that, through time, it becomes wisdom. And the aspect of wisdom, then manifestation of that gets bigger and better only through consistent use, and it becomes an understanding of why it is that it becomes something which is very big and cemented in your mind. So it's very, very important when we're dealing with the imperfections of life, dealing with our heads and really trying to go after all those things that we talk about in trying to connect with the chief, the owner of the heaven, the storehouse of the spirit is the connectivity of our head, our Godhead, our own personal Godhead. Each one of us, in some sense, is a God inside of the universe. But we begin to lose our way, our sense of who we are. We come into the world sometimes spiritually perfect, but we may have physical defects, and we may have forgotten to do the rituals before we got to here. And if we have forgotten, we always need to retouch our ancestors. We touch to our Egbe, our heavenly spirits, our identical doubles in heaven, or to what is also known as our shadow. And so you hear people talking about shadow work. I mean, how many people out there have heard about shadow work? Yeah, yeah. And what do you think that means when you're talking about shadow work?
It's your dark self.
Your dark self, okay. What do you think?
The things that you're...
Things that are unresolved.
Unresolved self, unresolved.
Yeah.
But you know, the idea of that is very African in a sense, because the shadow is the sense of the same thing that is occurring here on earth is also happening in heaven. And so if you're able to fix those things, the connection between the two realms, the same thing that you're doing here, that spirit is doing there in heaven. And it's talking to the same people.
Oh, Lord.
And so hopefully
That's not what I'm doing. That's another lecture for another day.
So we hoping that, that we educate you here is getting the education up there at the same time. What happened with that?
That's the next lecture.
That's the next one. Because all the divinities, and have to be really, the partnership between those things and the physical leading us to how we can further ourselves. Our head, has chosen our individual destinies. And when we look at the limits that we find in the successes or the lack of success that we find in the world, we can always relate those things to our head. And by contrast, we can look into what all these fantastic models that that they create to be able to form the human existence, and what happens with our individual guardians, and is really all because of our head. And it's with the support of our head and all our heads together, remembering that we have our ancestral head and our spiritual head and our inner head. And when we connect these things, and we have a synergy. And so the metaphor of the 3-in-1 that you hear so often is always outward. There's an always outward thing about the 3-in-1. But the 3-in-1 create a fourth. And that fourth is called prosperity. And to be able to gain a control and a connectivity between all your heads and all yourself is to have yourself in sense of harmony. There's a harmony in yourself, that there's an inner peace. People who say they have an inner peace. But you say the biggest peace that you can have is what? Peace of mind. You'll hear that all the time. And the Shekpa, that is our peace of mind, which is so very vital and important for us to have. But also, Orienu, the inner peace. There's a peace inside of your gut if you touch down just below your belly button, under there, where you can access your energy, your synergy of your being, of your desires. So now you're taking the desires of your inner being and touching it to the top of your inner being, that Godhead, and also that which touched the earth, your feet, your foot. And the biggest part of that foot is it has that connection, it grabs a hold, that big toe, which grabs and connects and brings those things down into being, into a realistic form by which you can be able to manifest. Today is important for you to realize simple rituals that can be performed to connect yourself with your head. Of all the things that you can connect your head and wake up your head and work with your head, what do you think is the most simplest of the rituals that can be performed? Yes, cool water. Water, simple water. And a little bit different with the simple water, the adding of simple prayers over the water to empower. You know, water holds vibration. It holds the prayers. And they say that if we use our prayers, and prayers are like eggs, you know, when they form in our mouths, the words and the things, and they come together and they form and they fall into the water. And now we take that water, and early in the morning, you take the water and you make a prayer. Ori, my head. It is you who I call. I call you before I call any other divinity. Ori. If I'm to have money in my life, it is you who I'll praise. Ori, it is you who I'll praise. Ori, it is, if I'm to have children in my life, it is Ori I will praise. Ori, it is you who I'll praise. If I'm to have a spouse, if I'm to have a car, if I'm to have all good things in my life, it is Ori. It is you who I will praise. And so that little bit of quick prayer that you can then be able to say over the water, then you anoint yourself with that water, sending it back through your heads. Ori Mopeo, Ori, I send coolness to you. Head, I bring these blessings to myself. And you slide it to the back of your head. And the best time to do this is in the mornings, when you awake. Before you do anything, cool water to your head. And you make your prayer before you do anything, before any word is spoken. And you allow that connectivity to be obtained. Of course, in the olden days, people would go to the rivers and collect the water and use that water directly from that source, that flowing water, to allow for the flow of their goodness to come into their being and be able to use natural water to be able to bring that natural water. But we can use tap water or any clean water, or use water that you left next to your bed, which is what I recommend. You take a glass of water and set it next to your bed before you sleep. Usually you'll see there's a vibration. Sometimes you'll see the bubbles in the water. It sometimes helps you to sleep. But the vibration of that water is the water that's been next to you is specifically vibrating at the rate and the vibration that you have been letting off, emitting, right? So these are called EMFs, right? Because we all are electrostatic energy. We're electrostatic beings, and we vibrate. And that vibration is affecting that water. And the best way of being able to work with any vibration is going to be some water that's vibrating at our specific EMF. And that tool will be able to bring about a certain level of connectivity. So there are various things that can be used to increase one's mind and head and the connectivity that we use to be able to wake up our heads. And of course, I told you water is one of them. That's very, very important. And it's probably one of the most simple and the most powerful of the rituals that you use. And you can virtually, of course, use and charge water. Sometimes I tell people they also should take a bath, put it in a bucket, water in a bucket, make a prayer using what they call giddy pepper or bird pepper, chewing 7 for a woman, 9 for a man, spitting it over water and pronouncing the water to do what you in charge and infuse it with your vibration, with your own personal prayer. That which you'll be able to then empower the water to be able to clean is a very, very useful and a very powerful form. A ritual that basically will bring about cleansing, and it's a ritual that you could experience that you don't need a trained priest to be able to connect to. So the next reason, so again, what does water do? Tell me again, I forgot. What does water do? Cleanses, what else it do?
Holds prayers.
Prayers, vibration, EMS, what else? I forget. Somebody help me. Coolness, we got that again. What else? What else is it?
Hydration.
Hydration, right? Hydrating, well, it definitely can hydrate the skin, that kind of thing. But there's something that I'm really reaching for, hoping that you will pull out. Refreshing is kind of close where I'm going. It's calming. You know, one of the things that we are made up with water, and so you say, boy, that whole thing about call down, take me away. Baths, sitting in water brings about a calming spirit. It calms, it brings calm, it brings nurturing, And you know that they say that if you spend 20 minutes a day looking at water or hearing water run, that your vibration will just automatically go down. I don't know if you know that. This is scientifically proven that if you listen to water or watch water, either on TV or you watch it, listen to the water sounds, those people, we have these fountains that you can get in your, those are very good for sleeping. Oftentimes people call that white noise, but it is a type of, but the water, the flowing of water automatically brings down your vibration. It calms you. It's a calming, and that's really what it does. Water brings as calming. The next thing that we use in terms of honey, next item that we would use or we can use is honey. And what do you think honey is used for? Sweetening, right? We're going to sweeten things, but really, joy. Honey is used to bring joy. There are 2 particular things that I'm going to give you that you probably don't realize and don't know, is that you can actually use honey and a combination of honey and toasted corn, grinded toasted corn, maíz tostada, right? And you use that. That one that they have in the Dominican Republic, everybody sell it everywhere, so they can use that. But you mix that with honey and use that for a small, what we call a salve. You use that and you put it on the top of your head and a little bit in your belly button. And believe it or not, it is a way of calling in joy to yourself and also calling good things. Another offering that is used is called, it's called oti. We call it oti, but it's gin or dry gin. And what do you think that does? Yes, you're raising your hand. What do you think gin does?
It's like spice?
No, gin is not spicy. Good chance, good guess.
It can refresh too. Refresh, awaken, add power.
Add powers, where I'm going, that's where you're going. Strengthen. You're going to strengthen something. You put gin on it. Also, gin is also used for a pleasurable, right? We drink gin for pleasure. But you also could, she didn't want to say that. It's pleasurable experience. And then also you can use it for wealth. It is wealth that we use to be able to use gin to be wealthy in a home. Only a person with great wealth can use this and just pour it on their head. So there's only a little bit. spray sometime. It's not something you want to go around doing in the morning going to work. They're like, hey, you've been out here. Before anything happened here, you're already smelling like shit. But it's something that is one of the additives that we use to make manifestation into the spiritual realm. So that's one of the things that I put down here. The next thing that is very, very good is something which is called kola nut. Are you familiar with? How many people you would raise a hand? Kola nuts, are you familiar with kola nuts now? Kola nuts. And so in Jamaica they call it busy. I know they have it in Jamaica where they call it busy nut. Also they call it OBC in Trinidad. I'm not sure if they have it in Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, or some of the other islands. I'm not so sure, but I know it's a small brown nut. I did bring one. I'll show you probably at the end of this. That it is used to be able to use for divination. And it's also when I gave you a hint of what it's used for by giving you the Jamaican name for it. And what do you think it is used for?
Busy.
Yeah, to keep you busy. It's cola nut. It's actually the real cola nut was once used in Coca-Cola. And the ingredients of Coca-Cola was two things: cola nuts, and cocaine. Yeah. Those are the two things that was used, and that was the original drink. And remember, it's many years ago. That was part of something that was used in the Amazon and the Peruvian jungles, and there was people, Native Americans. They used to kill themselves when the Europeans came and they would take away their coca. Like, look, don't do anything. Don't do that. There are stories about the committing of suicide because of the coca. Well, I don't know if Africans killed themselves over the cola nut, but I know there was something that it was commonly used. So it would be used as a candy. So like you want a candy, so cola nut would. Kids, you come and you also, if a person would dance and you give them cola nuts as a way of saying, wow, continue to dance. You got the energy, the energy. So cola nuts, it's something which is a strengthener. It helps to stimulate. It also is to alleviate problems and to great averter of problems. And also it's thought to be to bring wisdom. That in addition to coconut. The next that I will talk about is coconut, and the next two things. There's also a bitter cola and what we cola nut and a bitter cola. And the bitter cola is also used. I'm going to talk about the bitter cola. What do you think bitter cola would do? Anybody, any ideas?
To get rid of something?
To get rid of something? Good guess. Bitter cola is usually given to empower. It's for protection, and it's also for longevity. So that's kind of where you were going with it. And so some parts of that is bitter cola. Bitters, bitter drinks are also thought to give longevity, to add years to one's life through the bitter things, because they say the bitter becomes sweet. The bitter becomes sweet in the body. Bitterness or the bitter herbs and the bitter plants, when you do that, then you take away it then becomes sweet to the body. And there are more alkaline, in the sense of the alkalins in the body. And I said bitter coconut and coconut. And so coconut water is probably one of the absolute best of all waters. And that's one of the reasons why it's typically used in whatever we do in terms of work. It is absolutely the best. Remember, coconut water or green coconut water, the water in the green coconut can actually be used, and she's a nurse, she can, it's an infusion for your, to be used as intravenous. And that's how pure the water of a coconut is. It's very, very pure, and it's the most hydrating of all the drinks. It has the electrolytes inside of the water, so if you really study your science and your technology of what coconut water is about, you'll realize that it has a tremendous amount of electrolytes and is able to bring about this stimulus and to revitalization and refreshing. And refreshing's like no other drink. I mean, you can, one of the first things that I do when I get off the plane when I'm in Jamaica is I'm gonna grab a coconut. Take me by a coconut water. I mean, water. That's I'm like definitely always loving. It's one of the first things I want to go and do. Stop by to get there. Other things that we can use in head rogations and things like that. Another one is sugar cane. And of course, what do we think sugar cane is going to be used for again?
Sweetness.
Right, sweetness, what else? Types of blessings, sweet blessings. Sugar cane in particular, or cane juice, is a very, very good way of using that to refreshen your head. And as you can tell, there's a myriad of things that can be used to be able to freshen one's head. And also these things can also be used in baths. And there's a science to this. There's a science to really knowing what to use and how to use it. And there's, and this is the study of it. And so today is your exposure. This is called Orin 101. And so you're getting your sense of what this exposure to refreshing and renewing oneself and one's spirit and your head is that. Another thing that can be used is palm oil or different types of oil. Olive oil could be used as well. But in the context of African spirituality, we use palm oil and we use shea butter. And so there are two things that we use shea butter and we use palm oil. What do you think the shea butter is used for? It's for coolant, it's for calming, it's a calmant. What do you think palm oil would be used for? Guesses, any guess? Protection, that's not a bad guess. Protection is a good guess, but mainly it's used for soothing. That is a different type of soothing, particularly soothing of fires. So people have are very, very hot. You could use palm oil, but of course the first thing we would use is coconut water. Palm oil can be used to be able to, like she said, protect or something like that, could soothe. But moreover is used for bringing abundance, believe it or not. Because when the palm come together, the palm seeds, they come together like on the palm, they come together with a lot of little seeds. So if anybody knows, when you looked at how they produce palm oil, there's something called palm kernel nut. There's the nut, or there's a palm nut. And an outer skin of the palm nut is an orange shield. You might have seen this in the islands. Have you seen it in anybody seen it in the islands? No. Well, there's the pictures, you can look it up and we'll probably take a look at it. But there's the shield, the sheath, and it's orange, real orange. And I know it in Honduras, it's very, very big, and in Jamaica they have it. And I've seen it, no, I can't. You usually see it on the back of a truck and you'll see like the palm leaves and it just took it down. And so it's only a certain types of palms. There's 3,000 different variations of palm trees in the world, believe it or not. And so out of the 3,000 variations, most of human existence existed because of palm trees. And the first fire that was created was used by using the palm to be able to create ignite fires. And so palms used to be carried. The first skirts or the first skirt or clothes that human beings wore was made from the palm. The first hat, the first baskets, the first bags that were ever used, things to carry, was used from the weaving of palms. And so palms is a very, very powerful thing for human beings. And in the course of the human existence, needless to say that the palm tree, you can get the coconut water and drink it, and it can be hydrated to the skin. You can use make it oil or coconut oil. The various things that a coconut does is really, it talks about in Ifa how the human existence came into being. So the palm oil can be no different. The palm oil can also be used specifically to anoint your feet. Very, very hydrating. If you have very dry skin, you take and rub palm oil in your skin. You won't be able to wear white clothes, but because there's a sign that says that anytime you have palm oil meets white clothes, the white clothes loses. So you're gonna definitely need to not wear white, or just be very careful what you wear. But white palm oil is used to anoint your feet. Particularly, that's where you would anoint the part of the ori that you would use. You could use it to anoint your feet. And again, it is about bringing abundance to yourself. So the abundance of walking there. Also, we use palm oil sometimes, just a little bit of anointing on the bottom of our feet to open our roads. And so it's as used as a road opener. It's a very, very powerful road opener. It's known that we just cross ourselves and cross our crossroads so that we'll be able to enter into new places with ease. And so there's this sense about ease that goes on consistently, bringing ease to one's head, bringing ease and refreshing one's belly, bringing ease, bringing joy, bringing the good things in our life, connecting ourselves with our heads. Very, very vital, very important. There's really only a couple more things that I'm going to talk about. And so fruit, what do you think about fruit? Something we could use for our head? Absolutely, absolutely. Not only fruits, but bananas. Bananas is another using mashing bananas and putting a poultice used with bananas and a little bit of honey, a little bit of shea butter. It's a very wonderful way of being able to bring abundance to ourselves. It's used specifically for abundance and to be able to sweeten all types of fruits, but mushy fruits, things that are mushy, things that are usually better. You can use orange, you can use apple, you can, but I would recommend bananas, plantains, sweet plantains, ripe plantains, good for people who are being chased by death. Trust me, the information that I'm giving you here is priceless. It's next level. You really the amount of things that you can use and be able to connect. Plantain is a very, very good thing to bring goodness in your life. Ripe plantains can bring very, very good things as well as keep negative things away from you. Green plantain is used specifically to keep, if your people are sick, Joanne, you use it, should be able to use it in ways of rubbing rituals. If there's a lot of sickness or using it for yourself after working on people, I recommend that you take 2 plantains and you rub them on your body really bad, throw it in the garbage. That will absorb. Of course, tremendous amount of sickness. We know about sickness that we use onions. And I don't know if you know, onions are fruit. I don't know if it's not a vegetable, it's a fruit. And you can take the onion and place it underneath the bottom of your feet. You can take an onion and cut it up and place it next to your bed. That's absorbing. You can use beans, pounded beans, particularly black-eyed peas, or some mush, and you put it next to your bed, and it will absorb different type of vibrations out of your body to go in to it. So things that absorb it. Onion, if you cut an onion, and as well as lemons, so a combination of onions and lemons, and you put it, if you're someone who's dealing with upper respiratory sickness and ailments and stuff like that, the nurturing of the onion is the same way it could be externally used as well as internally used, mashed and put on top of their head and their feet and around the belly button. You can use that as a way of drawing way to draw out sickness. And these are home remedies that have been known for hundreds of thousands of years. This is something this is not new information, but it may be new to you. So it's something that you can consider. And then there's also one thing that is very, very useful for people who are priests. They would know more about what this is used for, but I'll give you a little hint about it. It's which they call sese vegetal. It's aki. You're familiar with the aki fruit? Aki fruit is also is used for head irrigations. It's also used for sickness, also for poisoning, for people that have different strong witchcraft type of issues that might have occurred. That is a very, very good fruit to be able to pull out. And of course, the in Yoruba technical sciences, we also use fish, dried fish. We use dried rat. We use animal, meat. We use meat. This is all part of head rogation. Believe it or not, you could use a meat head rogation. And for people who are finding themselves very downtrodden. Now, all these things that I've given you, right? And just like, wow, it's a lot of information, a lot of different things you could use. But what is the most important part of it? Divination, or the idea of someone who is able to diagnose and to treat and to heal, to educate, adjudicate, and to be able to get the pinpointing of what you personally may need. This is a variety of things, and of these things, the most important and the most common and the best ones are always going to be coconut, shea butter, and honey. Those are going to be absolutely the best. Those are going to be our go-to today. So today we're going to deal with those in terms of, because those, honey is going to bring what? Sweetness and joy. Coconut's going to be the greatest refresher, so we're going to use that refresher. And we're going to use shea butter, and shea butter smooths and soothes over things. And so everybody needs that in their life. And so that is going to be the source of what we're going to be utilizing today. But I did want to expose you in a lecture form and a way you can get to develop some understanding about the possibilities of you connecting spiritually with your heads and connecting the empowerment of what it has to do with empowering your lives. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. Do we have any questions up to this point?
Yes, I do. What did you say the toasted corn was for again?
Oh, toasted corn. So somebody help her out. What did I tell her? We were talking about the toasted corn.
We add it with honey.
Yep.
You put it in the pan, a small amount of butter. It's
Yep.
gonna bring prosperity, your attract from joy to yourself.
That's right. She got the note. So once again, it's going to bring about joy and prosperity. That's what you would use those things, and it's also, and there's I didn't talk about herbs and plants, and because they have very, very specific kind of uses. Herbs and plants can use certain, and the ones that kind of that's absorbing plants. Most people are familiar with a plant which we call leaf of life. And in Spanish they call it Prodigosa. In abata, in Yoruba, is used. It's one of the most famous plants. You can take this plant, and it's called live and never die. In the islands, they usually say it's live and never die, or wonder of the world. No, the other word, life never lasts. But it could be wonderful. I don't know. Maybe that's what they call it.
It is. It's the same.
It's the same one, yeah. But it has multiple names, and what they call it wonder of the world, because you can just take one leaf and set it there. There's one leaf, and you can have enough, so you'll have a big plant, and it'll create many plants, and next thing you know, you can give away. And it's that powerful of a plant. It's rejuvenative, and it's used for rejuvenation and renewal. It's a combination of both. That's the kind of thing. So when we look at these things, we look at the form and the time that it takes, for us to do rituals and to be able to perform these rituals. It's very important for us to realize that, morning time is better because we don't have our contact with people, and that's it. And so our body has been rested, and we have dealt with our own personal vibration and our own spirits, and so it's that time that is, usually the best time to be able to create these rituals and these doorways by which we're able to connect. And remember, it's about repairing our consciousness, right? Because it's realizing that, there's mental, the spiritual, and the physical. And so this is a physical form. When we touch our feet to earth, that's a physical form. And our spiritual form is considered to be in the mental form. So we're going to deal with our physical head and our mental head, and our physical form and our spiritual form, that inner self, that spirit which is in. And so these are the three in one coming together that we're dealing with when we deal with our heads, and to pay homage to our heads and to our higher selves. And this is how we connect to the invisible realms of the ancestors, right? We're connecting ourselves. As we connect ourselves, we're tapping in. We're plugging in as we make these different centers. And you know, when we are off-centered, one of those centers are needing to be realigned. And it's about realignment, and that's a thing which is very, very important. And so, you know, Oluwole says that it is character that we seek. It is character to seek. Before we seek anything, it is character we seek first. And that is going to be a restorer and a transformation by which we'll be able to get ourselves back and paying homage to our individual deities that not only live here on earth, but they live in the matter through our mothers and our fathers. And the highest form of this is to be able to connect to our highest good. Is once this is done, then our life is surely going to be better. So it is Ori, it is Ori, it is you. Say it is Ori.
It is Ori.
It is you.
It is you.
Who I praise.
Who I praise.
Before I have any other divinities, before I praise any other divinities,
Before I praise any other divinities,
Ori, it is you first.
Ori, it is you first.
And so that's the little, any further questions that you have, we'll take them now. Any other comments, thoughts, things that you think you want to add? You? What a cutie.
I have a question.
Sure.
So when we say obata, like when we give orphans to obata, is that the bitter, that's the bitter coat?
Abata is what we consider just sweet coconut.
Oh, the sweet coat.
Abata is 4 lobe or 4 valved coconut. The coconut is has different what we call sections. Sometimes we find 5, sometimes we have 3. 2 is the most common. Coconut is a wonderful offering for the head. And again, what does coconut do for us? We give that as an offering to our head. What does it do? Keeps us busy. There you go, Milton. She's on it. She's like, keeps us busy. Yeah, and you know, busy and active, you know, and so that's what it is, and it rejuvenates. So, and this, what she's calling is abata. So that's when you have a little bit of knowledge and you read it, and so you get a little sense of something else. And abata is used four vowels, and so you break it into 4. It's the coconut is used predominantly for divination. We usually give that to a sacrifice to our heads, and when we're reading to find out how things are going. But the actual best thing to read ahead with, believe it or not, is not coconut, not to read with. The best thing to read, of course, is coconut, better than coconut. But for the head, the coconut is actually better used to be read. Yeah, it's the actual thing that should be read. Each Orisha have different things. Shango, as here, Shango. Bitter coconuts are used to read for Shango and for the ancestors. So, and then Oya, you know, she can use coconut. Obatala likes white coconuts. So we read for Abata, white coconuts to read for Obatala. So there's this other question that is outside the realm of really what Ori is. But any questions? Any comments? Any thoughts? It's funny. So this is Ori, and we're about to do some interrogations for yourself. So I hope that you enjoyed this lecture.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.